Appreciate you being part of Birds 365 on this Wednesday morning. All right, Jeff Lurie was a little braggadocious last night, so I'm going to do the same here. Three good football minds to talk Eagles with you for the next 25, 30 minutes. Added to Mac and Mac is Les Bowen, longtime Eagle beat reporter. Les, were you bummed yesterday when you weren't out at the very expensive Biltmore in Arizona for the owners' meetings? I know you went to a lot of them over the years in some pretty established places. Did you ever do the Biltmore for the winter meetings?
Oh yeah. In fact, that every other year they have it in Arizona, and it's always at that hotel, which I love. I've only stayed there once. When I first started covering the Eagles 20 years ago, the league actually they had a rate there, if you wanted to stay there for the meetings. Yeah. They quickly got rid of that. They don't want all those reporters you see there. They're not staying at the Biltmore. Right. They're staying at like a Marriott property a couple miles away. That's much more reasonable. But I love that place. It has this wonderful courtyard, and there's a view of there's a mountain sort of framed by the courtyard behind it, and it's an old place. It's really lovely. Everything about it is amazing, and every picture I look at, I think I know where that is. They're standing in this corridor over here, But, it's when you're retired, I miss all the cool stuff. Yeah. And I conveniently forget all the things that just drove me crazy and that I hated about my work.
I'm like that, Les, for the first, I hate missing stuff. So I didn't go out to the meetings. Like, I hate missing stuff, but then I'm like, boy, I'm glad I didn't have to travel out there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a
in fact, one year at the Biltmore, I somehow really messed up my back and was like hunched over the whole time I was covering this, in pain, walking around. Every step was like agony, but you kind of forget that part.
Yeah. So did you have any pain or agony listening to Nick Sirianni at the breakfast, or Jeffrey Lurie, or, brag about the Kelly Green, which he got rid of in the first place? But I digress.
There was a lot of spin going on yesterday from various quarters. But, I will say, as a reporter, that is the best access of the year.
Yeah.
To Sirianni, to Lurie, to Howie. The Howie session doesn't last very long, but there's so fewer people there than when he's talking in NovaCare. I mean, it's just so invaluable to be part of that. And they have and you know this, John, they have a party. I guess it was probably Monday night this year. Everybody's invited, and all the coaches and GMs and owners go to this party along with the media, which is the only time ever in a year that you can just sort of saunter up to Jeff Lurie and, say, Jeff, how's it hanging? And you just don't get that kind
of. We lost Les.
Hopefully, Les unfreezes.
Yeah, he's right, though. It is the best availability of the year, of the entire year in the NFL. Les is 100% correct. The petting zoo as well.
Yeah, they ever had that. That's something new. Yeah.
Our buddy Jimmy Kempski with the sausage sandwich. You can get that. The breakfast with the good. Now, it used to be an hour back in the old days, Les. Now they cut it down to like a half hour. So they're limiting things, as they usually do. But it is tremendous to be able to sort of have some of that behind the curtain access.
Yes.
When it comes to Jeffrey Lurie, I guess I'll start with him. Beyond the nonsense, the Kelly Green stuff and all that, I think it was interesting. Not that we didn't know this, but Jeffrey basically said, look, offense rules in the modern NFL. He kind of closed this press conference and he talked about a minute 43. If we're getting the football back down a field goal, we're built for this. Essentially saying we're going to win the game. I agree with him. Yeah. I agree with him, by the way. And then Steve Spagnuolo's getting all the you-know-what out in Kansas City because his defense falters at the end. Are we at the point where it's just build the offense and maybe cobble things together on the defense, or is that going too far?
I think that's a little too far, John. I think you have to get there to the Super Bowl, and I do think you have to be able to get a stop, and that's really why the Eagles lost. I mean, they couldn't get a stop in the second half.
Yep.
You don't have to play, they won the Super Bowl giving up 503 or 505 yards passing to Tom Brady.
That's amazing. That's still amazing.
They pretty much proved it that year, Yeah. But every year, the matchups aren't always exactly the same. And like I said, you have to get there. And I really think you have to be able to play. You have to be able to get your offense on the field, if that makes any sense. And you do have to be presentable, I think, as a defense. You don't have to lead the league in defense. You don't have to shut down everything. But I think you have to have playmakers. If the Eagles could have gotten a turnover in that game, they would have won. That kind of stuff still matters. But Lurie's right. It's basically about the offense when you talk about being a contending team.
All right, since we're dealing with the offense, I'll go here. John gave me a hard time earlier because I read too much between the lines on Trey Sermon. I thought the coach went over the top talking how great a practice player Trey Sermon was. All right, if you're right and I'm wrong, that's fine. Should I worry about Nick Sirianni singing the praises of Quez Watkins? That he does all these things that don't show up in the box score and you guys don't necessarily get it. Now, here's what I thought of Quez Watkins last year. He went backwards. He wasn't as good a player as he had been previously. Still a young player, an ascending player whose career direction took a wrong turn. But the coach yesterday was telling us we don't understand what Quez Watkins does that doesn't show up in the box score. I think it's kind of an understated, underrated need of the Eagles. They need an upgrade at wide receiver 3 because you're only one bad turned high ankle sprain from Devontae Smith or A.J. Brown to having that guy on the field 85 to 90% of the time. Am I going down a wrong road again here to think that the Eagles are going to try and get better than Quez Watkins at their third wide receiver spot?
Oh, no, but the key word there is try. Right now, from Nick Sirianni's perspective, Jody, Quez Watkins is the third receiver. And until he isn't, you try to salvage and you try to, make up for whatever is going on there. If he still thinks Quez Watkins has potential, that maybe he did take a wrong turn last year, but he's still here. And maybe you can get him back in the mode that he needs to be into for this year. Or maybe you're going to end up relying on him one way or another. Maybe you get somebody else and they get hurt. He's still Sirianni's guy, so Sirianni's going to plead his case. And the same thing went for Trey Sermon. If Trey Sermon really was that remarkable in practice last year, then they really screwed up by never getting him into a game.
I wish.
I was reading all that and thinking about the problems they had on special teams and how they didn't really shake up. They were so reluctant to shake up the bottom of the roster. They finally brought that linebacker in,
Christian Ellis.
And he really had an impact, but it took them more than half the year to figure that out, And if Trey Sermon was really killing people in practice and doing this and doing that, I mean, they were a good team. They were a great team, but you could have gotten him a week. There were weeks when there was a running back who was banged up or something. You could have gotten him in a game.
Les, the funniest part of me, and I'm paraphrasing, when Nick said something like, I wish we could have gotten him more touches. Well, I know somebody who could have gotten him more touches. And he didn't get him more touches. I kept thinking about last year and Tay Gowan and Kerry Vincent and Mac McCain. Remember how the Eagles were talking up those guys? We love our young corners. We love our young. And even if then James Bradberry got here, you never heard their names again. Even the year before, it was Zach McPherson as a rookie. We're comfortable with Zach McPherson. And then Steve Nelson shows up 2 days before camp, and the first rep, he's the starting corner. I take everything with a grain of salt this time.
I guess you want to send that message to the player that he can't lose hope, and also to the rest of the league. If other teams are looking at the Eagles and saying, I have such and such running back, I wonder if the Eagles would give me like a 5th round pick for so-and-so. You want to present to the rest of the league that you're very confident in what you have, and, you're not needy in any way. Maybe you're trying to convince them that if Bijan Robinson is there at 30 with your second pick of the first round, that you're not going to go there. I don't know. I mean, there's all kinds of things, that are out there that you could be trying to affect, but I don't take those words at face value. I mean, running back is a weird position in the NFL. Guys do come off practice squads and become starters and, do this and do that. But Trey Sermon may end up playing a role here, but if he was really that great last year and they never got him in a game, then shame on them.
Yeah.
All right, Les, we haven't had you on since free agency started a couple of weeks ago. We're now 2 weeks plus since the legal tampering phase of the offseason in the National Football League. All things in, all moves considered, what's been Howie Roseman's best move? Taking it within the context of salary cap and need and everything else, what do you think the best thing that Howie Roseman has done since the first day of free agency?
I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to say bringing both the corners back and having them happy. Keeping in mind that until right before free agency, we had no idea there was really a problem with Darius Slay. We didn't even factor him into when the season ended, we weren't factoring any drama with Darius Slay.
Well, I knew they had to get the cap number down, but I didn't think it would be a problem.
That would happen.
Yeah,
We
I
didn't
think
really.
It'd be a problem. Yeah.
Nobody was saying when the season ended, Darius Slay is going to end up getting released or something like that.
Yeah, and the cap, we lost less again, so hopefully we get him back. But the cap number was up, but I didn't think it was going to be a problem. Les is right.
Yeah, did you think it was going to go to the
length
of they might have to threaten to cut him?
Slay loves it here, and that's his wife loves it here, and that's one of the reasons he's back, by the way, because he does love it here, and it was really meaningful for him to be voted team captain, legitimately emotional about being there. So I think a lot of that was, we all kind of put it in the rear. Well, Slay's going to be here, and they'll figure it out when it came to lowering the cap hit. So Les is 100% right on that. CJ though, I think we all thought conversely, if they're going to get two, I thought they were going to get, they were going to get one of the defensive backs back. Slay was going to be here, and then CJ was going to be here, and Bradberry was going to leave. Is it just as simple as CJ sitting on his hands, then they work something out with Bradberry, and then the money's up? Or do you think it was more big personality? We talked about CJ's, Marcus Hayes had his report about Denard Wilson, keeping him on the same page. I was talking about it's logical if you have an employee who's, a pain in the what versus one who's not. Right. You probably want the one who's not. What's your take on the CJ Gardner situation?
Well, I think I'll take what they said at face value to a point. I think they probably did target him going into free agency, think they could do a deal. He didn't want their deal. And I think they did move on. I'm not sure Bradberry. I think Bradberry and Slay, they gave a lot of extra money to Slay, to get that cap number down. I think by the time they got done with Bradberry and Slay, they didn't have much. And now, could they have made a harder push to match the Lions offer? I kind of think they could have if they really, really, really felt this was just essential to their team to do this. But they went out and got Terrell Edmonds very quickly, which kind of led me to believe that they had, they didn't just get caught flat-footed with not being able to re-sign CJ.
Yeah, Les, do you think things changed at all with him throwing to tweeting and deleting, him throwing Gannon under the bus, him sort of intimating some things about Jalen Hurts, who's obviously a big part of this organization?
Absolutely. I don't think that keeps you from signing him necessarily, but it certainly affects your enthusiasm level. And it makes you leery of what could happen with this guy if things go wrong, or if, it tempers your enthusiasm for his play, I think.
All right, Les, John and I were kicking this around earlier. Want your take on it. This past year, in 15 games, because he missed 2, Jalen Hurts carried the football 165 times, which is a dead flat average of 11 carries per game. And we know what the carries were: some RPOs, some quarterback sneaks, some he decides to take off and run after holding on to the football for 3.5 seconds, going, I got to get the hell out of here, and taking off and making plays with his legs. They were a combination of all those things. But the end number is 11 carries per game. You think he carries it more, the same, or less next year?
I would hope it's a little less. I've kind of given up on the idea that he'll have like a handful of carries, because seeing how he played last season, I kind of concede now that that's not optimal. I mean, he's so good with his feet that I don't think you want to take that away from him. Certainly the sneaks, you keep the sneaks. He's not going to get hurt on a sneak, I don't think. And
Peter King thinks it's coming. At some point this year, a missile linebacker is coming over the top and is going to take out a high-profile quarterback.
He might, but it's not going to be Jalen.
I don't see that. I really don't. The way they run it, he stays close to the ground. I just can't imagine that happening. I guess it could happen, but again, I don't think so. But here's what does concern me a little bit. There were times this offense always ought to be functional with the receivers they have, the running backs they have, the offensive line they have, the tight end they have. They should be able to run their offense effectively against anybody. There were times last year, and not always against good teams, the game he got hurt in Chicago, they couldn't do anything. They were struggling mightily. Well.
It was cold though. It was cold.
I know, but what they do, and I've said this before, if you ever remember that episode of The Simpsons where the kids play football, and it ends up Nelson is the only kid that can really get anything done, and he kind of looks at Milhouse and he looks at Bart, and he tucks the ball under his arm and just runs downfield, and all the other kids bounce off of him, and he scores a touchdown. That's the Eagles' offense when they get in trouble, and I don't like that. I think that's, there's no way they should have to resort to Jalen Hurts running around, to move their offense. I mean, it's a great weapon to have, but that you don't just throw up your hands and have Jalen get it done when it's cold, or, when somebody has a good plan against you. You figure it out. And I want to see that happen. I don't want to see him average 11 carries a game. I think maybe 8 would be a nice number, depending on the number of sneaks and things like that. But I don't want to see it go away, but I do think, there's danger there. And we saw it vividly. That injury could have been a lot worse. Yeah. What if he couldn't have played in the playoffs? How would things have gone then? They downplayed that thing from minute one. Jalen, to his credit, he was at the post-game presser and he downplayed it, but that was a pretty significant injury. You're right, Les. That could have went in a really negative direction. I just love we got a Nelson Muntz reference from Les Bowen on Burst 365.
Uber impressed, like secondary characters. He's just ripping off Simpson stars. Love it. Was impressive, Les. I got to give it to you too.
Well, love it.
Now I want to go back to the Trey Sermon because I think it's ironic, and Quez Watkins as well. For this reason, Les, there are young players they are counting on. Really counting on. Cam Jurgens being one of them, Nakobe Dean, Jordan Davis. even Reed Blankenship, Milton Williams, if you want to go back a couple years. These are guys they're counting on that need to step up in the roles. And I thought it was interesting. Nick kind of went the opposite route with Cam Jurgens. Like he's talking up Trey Sermon and Quez Watkins, but he's like, Cam Jurgens, well, we'll see. We have Jack Driscoll as well. And you don't want to hand people anything. You don't want to decree them anything. Cam, I think, played 35 snaps. So you want him to go earn it. But they need these guys. Is that sort of the mentality behind that?
Yeah, that's a very important point, John. They do need these guys as they move forward with this Hurts contract. They don't have an alternative here. They can't go out and sign a bunch of guys to play these, but they have to have these guys they've drafted do have to move into these positions. And right now that's being taken as a given. And my position on that is, they have to do it, but it isn't a given. I mean, we didn't see enough of any of these guys, even Jordan Davis, to really be sure that things are just going to flow right on the way they were last year, and everything's going to be great. With Jurgens, I have the most confidence probably of any of those guys in him, just because of what the coaches say about him and the other players say about him. You're right. He played very few snaps. I do know when he was drafted, the plan right now is for him to play right guard, obviously, with Suamalo gone. When Jurgens was drafted, I will say this, it was as a center. And I asked somebody on that offensive line about the possibility of Jurgens playing guard if they needed him to play right guard, because Suamalo was coming off an injury and blah, blah, blah. He was moving from left to right. This person said, well, we'd be awful light over there on the right side with him and Lane. That wouldn't be anywhere near what the left side is in terms of weight and,
that's true,
power. And I don't think Cam Jurgens has changed a whole lot in a year. I think he's still a very small right guard, a much smaller man than Isaac Suamalo. So we'll see. Maybe there's a little bit of, he's going to get first crack, but we'll see how this goes. I mean, Cam Jurgens is going to be Jason Kelce's successor. Yeah. And I can't imagine, I never thought Kelce was going to retire this year off of one of the best seasons of his career and the team going to the Super Bowl and not winning. It didn't make any sense to me at all that he would retire, but I do think this is it. I think this will be his last year.
Yeah, finally. We keep it, you're saying Cam is the heir apparent. He is, but remember, Isaac was the heir apparent, and then Landon
Nate Herbig was the heir apparent. They've had a bunch of heir apparents.
Landon Dickerson was the heir apparent, and now Cam Jurgens is. So who knows? He might move to right guard, and he plays so well. You remember going way back, Les? The original plan with Lane Johnson was, all right, he's going to play right tackle and then slide the left tackle when Jason Peters retired. Jason never retired. And all of a sudden, one day, Stout showed up and said, you know what? I'm not moving him. He's so good at right tackle. You never know. We're on heir apparent number 8 for Jason Kelce. Right. It's unbelievable.
All right, let me get this in for both you guys, because it's in your wheelhouse as Eagle beat guys. Shoot, Johnny's even, and you might have been, Les. I don't know if they included you in the competition. The correctly projecting the Eagle 53-man roster before the season
Les
starts.
Is a former champion.
You're a former champ, Les?
Yeah, I won that about 3 or 4 years ago, I think.
Way to go, big guy. Didn't know that. Congratulations to you. It's going to get tougher next year, because one of the very few rule changes they made, the Eagles got them to add number 0, because according to the owner, they're running out of numbers and they just needed another number. I don't know what I was buying, what Jeffrey was selling yesterday, but one of the rule changes is 1 cut down. Yeah. You're going to be able to keep all your players, all 90, right up until right before the first game of the season. Now they built in an extra week in the new schedule. Isn't the quick turnaround last preseason, first game? There's that buffer week, Labor Day week. So that gives you a little extra scramble time, but scrambling is what it's going to be. Because if you have the layered cut downs leading up to, you give a guy a chance to go out and find another job. You can say you do the right thing. kind of sell your organization a little bit. We cut them ahead of time so you can go get a job. No, everybody's going to be cut on the same day. Yeah. All the cut downs are coming at once. Good thing, bad thing? Why do you think they implemented this offseason?
Well, they've done a lot of finagling with that over the years. They went to keeping more guys later because that last preseason game was you want to have a bunch of guys that you don't care about, frankly.
Crash test dummies is what they are.
To play in that last preseason game against the Jets usually. It's interesting. I do think you gain, sometimes you pick up a guy from those early cuts, but if they have extra time to sort out who got cut between the last cut and the regular season, then they can do all that work, I guess. You'll probably see some shuffling, going on between,
especially with the bad teams. I mean, they'll pick across that, and you'll see the Bears did it last year. They picked up like 8 guys on waivers, which is rare. But I for people that want to see starters in preseason football, that's done. Yeah. I mean, you're going to have 90 guys. You don't have to. So there's some give and take to it. But certainly it's not it's going to make preseason football even less meaningful than it was, I think, from that standpoint. Right. Jody brings up the rules. I thought it was, Jeffrey gave a shout out to John Ferrari, who's sort of the compliance guy, the rules guy, who was promoted to assistant GM. I want to take it from, Howie never gave that title out. Didn't give it out to Joe Douglas, Andy Weidel. Didn't give it out to a personnel guy. He gives it out to John and Alec Hallaby, who's an analytics guy. Do you think that's purposeful? I kind of read it. I like Howie doesn't want, for good or for bad. And by the way, I think Howie does a tremendous job. I think he's a great GM. But, back in the Joe Douglas days, I brought it up to Jody. People would say Joe was responsible for this and he would get some credit. For good or bad, Howie wants the credit. Do you see it that way?
I hadn't thought about that too much. You're saying that giving Ferrari the assistant title is sort of something
he doesn't
new?
want to give the assistant GM title to a personnel guy. He gave it to a compliance guy.
Yeah, you'd have an heir apparent to an analytics guy. Yeah, if you had that. It's very interesting. I don't really know what Howie's thinking is there. I know my thinking is that Alec Hallaby is Julian Lurie's guy, and that someday, maybe 10, 15 years from now, maybe 5 years from now, it'll be an interesting dynamic when Julian Lurie is running the Eagles. Howie understands power politics. Howie was Joe Banner's protege.
Yep.
And then one day, Joe Banner wasn't there anymore.
Yes. That is correct. Howie's got a lot of pelts on the wall, I describe it. If you think about it over the years in the personnel department.
When Jason Light worked for the Eagles, and we're going back more than a decade now, I guess it doesn't matter now if I can tell the story of how he ended up leaving the Eagles. Jason and Howie were tight. They were kind of at the same level of the organization under Banner and Reed. And Light confided in someone else in the organization. Howie, people say he's not a football guy and that bothers him a lot, but he's really not as great a football guy as he thinks he is. And that got back to Howie, and Howie maneuvered Jason Light right out of there. So Howie knows how to play the palace intrigue game, certainly.
Yes, he does. Lewis Riddick. There's so many names. There's so many big names that have gone. But, to the Eagles' credit and Jeffrey Lurie's credit, when you see that annual coaches photo, and I think 13 of them used to work for Philadelphia, you see all the organizational assistant GMs. They have built a very, very strong organization. I loved your tweet, though, about Thursday night football. There's greed, and there's are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? About potentially flexing Thursday night football games.
There's no way that could work. There's no way the teams, the players,
I gotta tell you, Les, that's where we disagree. It's coming.
Oh, it's
I don't
coming.
know when. I don't know if it's May. I don't know if it's next year, but they're doing it because Amazon wants them to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's complete greed, but it's going to happen. They've already changed that you can play 2 games now. That's to get the Cowboys on the docket, the Eagles.
The other thing they did is you don't have to have a Thursday game, which I read as we want to have fewer terrible teams on Thursday night.
Right.
If you're the worst team in the league, then we don't really need you to play on Thursday night. You're not
showing up on Thursday. You'll be playing Sunday at 1 every single week, guaranteed. All right, last thing for me, Les, we got to wrap this bad boy up. This upcoming season, will Les Bowen be going to the bottom of his drawer to pull out the Kelly Green 17 jersey of Harold Carmichael, or will he be going to PhiladelphiaEagles.com and ordering the Kelly Green 17 jersey of Nakobe Dean? If you're going to be paying homage to the Kelly, as Jeff Lurie believes that all Eagle fans on the planet want, are you lining his pockets with a new jersey, or do you got a good one that you've been holding out on that you're ready to break back out again?
I don't really buy those things
Come on,
as a writer, Jody, but I'll tell you this. I think they're going to screw this up. They had the 2010 opener. They used the Kelly Green. It was an elegant sort of homage to like the Chuck Bednarik, Jody. The other Tommy McDonald.
Chuck.
Tommy McDonald.
Tommy McDonald.
Yeah. That era of the Eagles, which that's vintage. That's throwback. What people are talking about now is a throwback to the 90s.
Yeah.
Well, I know I'm old, but a throwback to the 90s, that's not a throwback.
That's 30 years ago now. Last year it is.
But that's not a vintage. The 60s look.
Vintage, you're right.
The Frankfurt Yellow Jackets. Now that's vintage.
That's the ugliest
thing. Yeah, the problem with that is nobody even remembered that those were their colors. And
somebody tweeted that at AJ Brown. He's like, no thanks.
No,
he doesn't want to wear that.
Nobody thinks that's a good idea. But the 50s, 60s era, I think, would be the way to go with that. I think they're going to end up with like the Reggie White looking.
The Reggie Randall jersey was cool. That's when I got to town. It all comes down to when you first bought in, and I moved here in 1990. So that's kind of my era.
The only team paraphernalia I have, Les, for any team is what was given to me free at times.
Yeah.
And it stays in a drawer or a box. It never comes out, by the way.
I have a lot of coasters. They kept giving us coasters there for a couple
Kelly
of years.
Green coasters.
I do use the coasters, actually.
Well, actually, this one's black.
Yeah, I got that one.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm going over to Les's house for a cocktail one of these days. So
yes, there you go. Yeah,
look at that. There it is.
Everybody's. How did I not get the coaster? I'm not on the beat, so I don't merit a coaster.
I like the coasters.
They're very good coasters.
Well, we like Les Bowen, and we like having him on the show. We're going to do so again within the next couple of weeks. Let's take a couple of weeks off. No Eagle stuff to talk about after the meet. Got a little downtime here. You get to hear from Jeff Lurie. You got to hear from Barry. You get to hear from Howie. Howie will make a couple of under-the-radar free agent signings. We got a couple of weeks to relax a little bit. You do the same. We will be calling for your services again soon enough, my friend.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bowen, here with us on Birds.
Dueling coasters. How about that?
That's pretty cool. The fact that you both had the same coaster handy during the show. All right, quick timeout. Got to come back. Got to put a bow on the show. We're almost out of time.